nature demonstrates what's the purpose of why how we're supposed to understand that there's a difference between how truth can be used for lies. Simultaneously, when we were young, wisdom, the invisible but still discernible. So they used phrases people do differentially. They use phrases like wise guy, where and how differentially criminally foreign influenced. Each age of fact keeping nature at each of the hundreds of nations, each of the identities or locations of the human volume since semi ancient times. There have been treatments of A, therefore B, like uses of the phrase soft on crime or hard on crime, slash hard on crime. We have people speaking for the laws as a certain type of victim predator, differentially criminally foreign influenced, differentially kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lies, natures of identity theft, fraud, slander rules. Immediately, the subject where black and white was brought up by colonization. Immediately, the subject tied to all other subjects here in America as Americans' history. See, the value of the simultaneously is offensively forbid by behavior predators as the ones trying to speak calm till as a certain inclusion. Also with the insidiousness of A through Z. Syntactically, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, not military. The leaders with their real souls really want to say is thank God for the military. But no one has anything to thank God for. In other words, as alternatives to wars or sanctions. And before that, while as those as value, the original breaching method, self-valued by all, admitted, confessed, demonstrated, pretending other to be screening it. The breaching method, the one that puts slavery uses of color and assign them other values. This is how computers work. They assign the binary value and another location, /S. One identity of value progression remembers positive or negative at locations. They agree to do it so you can plug this keyboard in with this language. And they have so many so many locations. Those same locations, you know, could have image, and now you're going to assign a different value. That breaching method put color black/white. Tactical ulterior from what it is as nature demonstrates us engineered. As nature's as itself engineered. No, as Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature, where consciousness, where it has a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to everything it is as itself. We're a small part of its complete possession over space/existence as it is actually discernibly manifest. How this has been prevented. For example, all the simultaneous revelations, wherein how the branches of government and overt criminal enterprises and private criminal enterprises still self-valued, forced, tricked her, persuaded, and that insidiousness to opinion natures A through Z. We guys like a few hundred child abused, generations, another generations of having blamed other things, others, ourselves, for what took to collusion, all identity ground, identity formal locations of education, every difference. Public schools, private schools, collusion between it has to do with really how our militaries are manifest. Has to do really the result of even respond if we want our own do our good things and other people do good things. In other words, the most important thing is where and how we are fact-cheaping nature. And what some people go, oh, this led up to wars. They have the right to do whatever, but not to keep going. Prevention of the revelations that come the second we hear black/white ulterior from its actual course. The second we hear logic entertaining the suburbs, let alone the cities. The suburbs were designed by a slavery method, north and south, not just by colonization. Colonization, therefore, was slavery in itself. As fact-cheaping nature, tactical ulterior from what causes positive and negative value nature progressions, what grades us as nature. See, we've been timed everywhere we're going to go. There has never been one location, area, or state of one location anywhere the human volume is since some ancient times that has not been self-valued, criminally foreign influenced, relative to where and how, vertically and horizontally, preemptively, increasingly, while already having been. Individuals, they know each other, and strangers are kept knee-high the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lives together. And emotions, speaking about the emotions of other people. The premises treatment, the evidence, the data reception, evidence perception, identity perception, value of sequence perception, value of the simultaneous perception. So we learned to do what witch trials were and what slavery was. Our founders left us to understand this first with the revelations that come with where and how, as actually American history was recorded. North slavery was entrenched north and south by a breaching method that implied that had assigned a physical value. Values had nothing to do with that, per the same way the computers work. And we don't have the time for them to use time too fast, too slow, to pretend they don't understand people. The location can be positive or negative. It can't be zero. They just agreed to have it zero so they could sense it. Then they have a way they could have the computer do math and sense which key was typed. Okay, so that's assigned A with this keyboard in English. And if you type the combination of keys, what everyone's leaving out is how it's just that simple. The identity of value progression. Value slash value progression. And the value of sequence true. And the increasing value of the simultaneous. So what was slavery with the color assignments and witch trials at the same time? Having perfected method, it was a breaching method perfected against Native Americans. Further, further, once the counter began, that no one could be a part. Even our other founding parents had to be counter extorted by our founding parents, as they actually were. And so, for example, George Washington could tell no lies. All rise, CT, Connecticut. I'm not saying that story we were told that he said, that we were told that he said he cannot tell any lies. He has to chop down a cherry tree. But what else they left us to teach that they said? Without being able to quote them, what they communicated to us was that and how they didn't have free speech. Was that and how slavery was entrenched sickly distinctly north and south. And they had and that was including the people running it. You're a slave. You live next to it. You want nothing to do with it. You go through that campus. You're semi-complete possession. You're the complete possession of ground systems that are tactile ulterior from the one that engineered. Black and white assigned syntactical conjunction to our syntax, therefore to our functioning, to our quality/qualities of fact-sheeping nature /aspects of nature, of fact-sheeping nature. So no criminal insidiousness as a quality of fact-sheeping nature, as aspect of fact-sheeping nature, relevant to questions and relevant to how to use these revelations that have been screened here and there, and relevant to how that was and is gotten away with simultaneously. So relevant to where and how the value of the simultaneous is actually being and having been motivated for a bit. Boxing is slid. So science is sharing identity, differentially in demonstration of the revelations. We're hyper positive that is also positive unto itself is made out of negatives. See, the breaching method set all engineered roles off the records, making positives out of negatives, the way the breaching method told them to. So syntactically, they will blame on other things other than yourselves and their delusions, like with politics, physical delusions, where it was including by our only standing. Everyone came through criminally foreign influenced campuses, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, they'll pretend other. And they'll admit this, but in ways that no one will be let told. Because then they keep the syntax nature of everyone, reliant upon what they heard through others, and simultaneously the sense and sensibilities of the interbranch themselves as the ones, no matter who they are, criminally foreign influenced. And simultaneously delusions wrought. Exactly the way the breaching method made this. One of the proofs of it, one of the things that is hyper evidential, countless Americans, countless of people through the world want to explain how the suburbs are tactically denatured, designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, not just against Native Americans, not just against everyone. In other words, there's a difference between having a reservation too and having the ground with its identity relation to itself, access to water. So everything is measured, maintained, also engineered through other motivations, nature's needs, interest of the parent, even where and how real or made up is regardless, because all that is used remotely too, and for where and how all locations were used. See, this is a breaching method that was sophistication from ancient times, from some ancient times, before latter some ancient times. We're already locked into the foundations that justify, for example, where and how the relativity of the science of sharing identity, differentially, especially critically, and where and how. Where we are directed, for example, if people want to be honest about their passions and emotions, it would have revealed that we were directed to teach about hypergenesis, where and how matter was generated. And nature demonstrates the answer to this. But we have people offensively pretending passions, emotions at each age of fact, human nature. As people consciously shown needs to hide. See, everyone misses it though. I'll show you how they have the transition. People, when you're in the youngest grade, no matter who you were, when treatments of black and white come up, everyone blamed on other things, others ourselves, other than exactly the way to hide exactly what our founders left us to figure out. But the breaching method was already sophistication, so figure it out first and adapt it. It set everybody up like that. The breaching method knew that nature was going to demonstrate itself. A breaching method causes and caused all kind of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Natures like criminal insidiousness natures. The people in the furtherance of those laws, and the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones. And obviously the prison's tied to them, because after they spoke and left records and made positive and negative treatments, no identity treatments, no, they have to hide from her the value of simultaneous with, a quality of fact treatment nature. Everyone was forced to be uses of quality of fact treatment perception too, because this is already being and having been sustained. So not one has trained, but through its trap /s. And so it knew that we would have to counter this as fact treatment nature. No longer capable of doing it without blaming other things, others, and ourselves exactly the way the breaching method needs. We have the answer /s. More so how a computer works, and more finite so how a computer works. And then exactly how a computer works is how the hypergenesis works. That which is actually in demonstration. For example, between the manifest bound, as the value of binding the value, increasing the value of the bond, of the identity of relationship between and the sequence true before the order of the finite now, the smallest finite detail. And so then the order of the finite, then the order of what is active simultaneously, and the order of progressive value. To that extent, we know is to come. And the extent we don't. Mixed. No. And further, with the ground, is the further one of the three ways, the increasing value of that, which is one of the three bound. One identity is bound 1/3/5 ways. Si and yang, male and female are one volume. It's not yin and yang, it's yin yang. See the S between them. Black/white. We were not even a quality of fact, cheap nature that had been honest to allow to protract the revelation of why and how nature itself has us manifest. No, now they're using nature with their discussions because of war. At the last second, they start using nature instead of environment. So we have we have to put forward these plans for them, native plans, and we have to know that the country's at wars. In other words, we know that a war is about a breaching method. And no one told honestly about the breaching method of America, regardless if they're not Americans or if they are. The relevance of it. In other words, there are nuclear weapons. There have been machine guns, even. War, in other words, there have been solutions that have all been only to lock in justifications. In fact, human nature self-value uses of value systems, of identity, the grounds, identity, the relationship to itself, native pure. Now tactical ulterior, now systems tactical other. It was not just because of transportation needs why industries started on the water. This is the tactically denatured, force people not just to be proletariat or etc. Middle class, poor. Right there, instead when people are using the class, you're separating the revelations. You're separating the predicate acts delivery system method, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, self-value by victims who pretended our founders had been spoken for anyway. A through Z, it came through 6 campuses. So what you do, everyone's waiting, because everyone has to defend their logic. Says we have to use where people do good and bad at the same time. Remind these people's names. I listen, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Through time, it's been a long time, and they have their sources at locations, areas, and states. See, the military, police families, originally and still, each of the branches of the government distinct, grouped, individually grouped and together. A certain kind of victim that has been maintained differentially criminally foreign influenced, but differentially increasingly, and still as victims. We're relevant as victim predators where no one wants to be, but they end up staying that way. It is maintaining the outcome /S per uses of identity ground locations, entrances and exits, formal and informal, with parks, with campuses. The republic for which we stand in its campuses Marcia system, tactically re-engineered from that and how it was revealed functional. by humanity working together before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. Alpha and Omega, and where and how and why, male and female, mother and father. They are two distinct volumes, two distinct bodies, but it is about that one. It is part of where and how distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously, hyper simultaneously, three distinct volumes of invisible but still discernible are increasingly manifest, greater so and more finite so than why and how the subject, the verb are distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously. The subject as each language just it can't separate. It just stays about that. It's about nature, not the environment. It's about nature's identity relationship to itself, which only can be discerned by its conjunction, the positive and negative simultaneously. But we can no longer afford insidious natures of positive and negative. Greetings. Greetings, Ron Adams. So there are people dying still. We have wars. And no one ever addressed how the breaching method, the hyperarchetypal breaching method, for example, to discern that which was all the roles with colonization, a whole bunch of breaching method roles, breaching methods roles, plural, by a breaching method. See, this breaching method knew the devil, the proverbial devil / Satan, or whatever is referred to. In other words, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. There are proofs that decipher. And religions are about this, the criminal re-engineering of the human education, the human fact, human nature. It is a mimic of what? The identity of the hyper-simultaneous, as that which is actually the hyper-simultaneous. So we have to discern this syntactically because it is traceable where and how. Otherwise, is measured and maintained by a breaching method onto all locations, areas, and states everywhere where the species is. It uses things like in America, it uses where and how. It measures and maintains everyone not capable of being the sophistication to go back and defend their premises honestly, the fact, human nature, qualities, and aspects. In fact, human nature, criminal insidious never had the right to be criminally legalized. Where and how the locations, areas, and states, the real causes of criminal insidiousness, nature's wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, predicate acts, murders, child abuses, roles, pretending passions, emotions. Oh, I don't want this person to get hurt. That's why they have the jobs like this to come up to it. Then they do 8 years, they're going to do more. And they're going to ignore things. The quote experts of each science, individually grouped and together themselves, used remotely, measured and maintained by a breaching method, bridged, and everyone blaming other things, others, themselves, and themselves then measuring, maintaining through other motivations, nature's needs, interests, and no one wants that. It's differentially criminally foreign influence. Everyone, while they're differentially criminally foreign influence, I'm not going to state because already criminally foreign influence since you were in grammar school. And the foreign and domestic are in collusion to each spot. CRT treatments and encounters to it. They're involved with a wire crime acts and methods, uses of the social media, uses of the people who are training people to take computers. Those are people that have been involved with planting evidences, including with instances, painting arrays of people to uses of other people's names, and A, therefore B treatments, and with physical delusions, and as people preventing us our needs to use the simultaneous, what is actually simultaneously recorded, what is actually hyper simultaneously recorded. For example, that not just being that which is simultaneous as an individual, that which is simultaneous as the species body, being nature is simultaneously greater than and more finite than us. We have control one way. The way it has control, it will only allow a perfect value progression. So where evolution's fruits and gifts means here out of nowhere. See where we are factually nature, where we are to make positives out of negative, as criminal insidiousness, natures of positives, as exceptions in exception nature. Now how truths can be used, there are exceptions to the truth and to the value of the truth. And or research, or non-research. See, we could use what is hyper-evidential. See, Marbury versus Madison, and Constitution on a bridge is all we need. /S. I tell it best, boxing. Okay, the light is going. Thank you, everybody. And how to end war. Syntactically, we know there is that theater forced. Every country is a victim of this. Hundreds of countries. Now you guys are hurting each other. The species bodies hurting each other through representatives. Now forced to be bound, only remembered bound, individually grouped and together. Tactical ulterior from how we are grouped individually, individually grouped and together, tied to our syntax, that which is increasingly value and increasingly hyperconjunctive to all sentences in every language. Yeah. It teaches clear. In other words, I forget that people are dying and that people are needing. I'm not justifying him. I'm on the opinion because there are no premises forward. There are only uses of names that are recorded in collusion with shootings here and pretending other and screening the real causes of it. They've been planting, we have the military used criminally foreign influence since I was a little kid. The families inter vertical and horizontal. When they make these things about they're pretending about things about the characters of our kids, they're a breaching method is pushing off what it has to blame on other things others themselves that it caused and causes. And everyone else has to push off, blame on other things others themselves, sickly distinctly. It knew that would be that way. And it knew that people that were actively doing that would increasingly have to value that, having been, and other having been told, So we have the people about sense and sensibilities. We have theories regarding what they claimed were crimes and are not. They have complete possession over mass, opinion nature. They're pretending people make conspiracy theories. They're fabricating audio and video to hide this. How they got away with it, get away with it, has to do with where and how this method know, and then shows them needs to hide our formal here there. So to treat everyone as a forgiveness is discern the motivations apparent and unrealized, also being and having been juxtaposed with the breaching methods, motivation. it needs to keep other, because nature's going to keep demonstrating the breaching method. Slavery and the simultaneous value of the positive and negative treatments with black/white, as people pretending to speak, be able to speak for the passions and emotions too, or the law as people A through Z. It's about the simultaneous. It's a quality of fact, human nature that was prevented courts originally and still. It was prevented the physical identities of the law, specifically to have people use as victim predators truths as lies. All right. In other words, I'm the law. They switch names, forge names. Then they pretend they don't. Then they didn't realize you're making fun of them. Forget about it. They've been using the right quote, right to rely, unquote, since founding drums. See, president/chief. Thank God, Native Americans enabled, a defense capable of doing damage control, but it didn't win. Not our founders or the Native Americans or any modern country. Now there are two ways to say thank God: to make positive out of negative, or as criminalization is still as negative, temporary positive that's still negative, or to make hyper positive out of nowhere too. Additional means come. So that theater forced entertained that country's A through Z. And then that theater forced, coupled with that as war. Countries as identities capable of admitting that simultaneously can put forward a third theater and have immediate resources and the entire species volume. And in other words, and two, knowing that the countries involved with this, all our countries' names, just like color, was assigned values that have nothing to do with it. So if they assign a 0 or a 1 to what is positive or negative, they could sense positive or negative in sequence. The simultaneous identity of value progression and its memory of physical locations, even if it has to sense it a couple steps, a couple milliseconds. So apparently 1 second can be broken down into a million parts. Control our hearts. Wisdom is not. And those are not means, not as the way that loan redeems. Call through all teams. So in other words, that's what we need, because it recorded affront to every body of the human volume is that and how there are nuclear weapons, and at the other end of them, or even guns and wars. And at the other end of it, there are sanctions. And at the other end of that, there are all kind of theater narratives, criminally foreign influence, self-valuing, how since before cars were even, the suburbs were tactically denatured, involved with the slavery, that fact, cheap in nature slavery and identity thefts and frauds and slanders, even against our founders. No matter how powerful a leader could get, they could only be above locations, areas, and states, have only heard to be able to speak. Criminally foreign influence, positive and negative treatments, already being and having been in collusion against each age and nature of difference, as difference is caused. I'll drop the force, boxings. It's not positive or negative to fight or not. What's positive or negative requires discernment of what is positive and negative simultaneously, as it's what is actually the nature's identity of value progressions, identity of relationship to itself, value of relationship to our difference here from the rest of space nature, where we can be demonstrated to with consciousness. You're now no longer, and it's demonstrating that to us too. So we could be systems other before space nature transfer, Leith of Hadith. And so that's self-valued though. That's self-valued. The reason it's self-valued because that was used remotely. And that is reused remotely. So that increasingly self-values it having been reused remotely. So that increasingly is needed to hide lies for all kind of known and realize motivations and things they call politics, but they were juxtaposed with words, remote uses of all locations by this, which was sophistication here and in all the other countries too before. There is a way not just to cause positive value nature progressions, acts and natures, the way the breaching method set them up as fake exceptions to what nature demonstrates causes positive value nature progressions, acts and nature. To make America great again. Nature has been demonstrating that the hyper-native system was forgotten. That which as itself was this distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously further additionally ourselves being, this is the science there are revelations with the short words regarding black, treatments of black / white. And that anywhere, even if it's not even in America, even if it's not even involved with the countries that are involved with it. Because right there is where it can discern. Everything is about how the hyper invisible is functional, being invisible but still discernible. Distinct identities of itself, as distinct as the value of 5 distinct identities of sequence nature, as the same simultaneous nature, and grouped, bound 3 ways. And this is discernible, but we need to use this is perspective from the extent we can discern of its complete volume. So modern religions have still not been liberated. And the people of psychology, for example, have physical delusions simultaneously, reliant upon that. So they've been proclaiming lies about people into databases as people conjunctively through time doing this as collusions through time on campuses and off campuses. Whether you go to private school, they connect it. There is an extent of complete possession that was never unhinged. We're never level that is mimicking that extent of complete possession over space, all of space / existence, that is demonstrably greater than both space and existence and more finite than them, while it is both of them too simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as itself. Hyper simultaneous, the value of that. And so to describe this and to trace it back, That's why it assigned thing to other values. Don't forget, since before computers, before our founding parents were even born, the ancient republic's campus system was databases oriented. It was rediscovered. Re-engineered. The evidences of it. It's very. In other words, thank you, everybody. What to do about the war is to make a quality of fact human nature that doesn't use names. Oh, it's this person, and that's why, and this is why. It's about this or that. Use in other words, what really are the premises? See, then law can be used. Then silence can be used properly. And in other words, so individually grouped and together, even grouped and all together, all of that, it was sophistication first. This consciously measures and maintains awareness that nature itself demonstrates. When you tell people about color, here or there, where, in other words, it's about simultaneously juxtaposed natures of roles with a predicate acts delivery system method. See how the predicate is valued to English as the main verb, as the verb's distinct identity of relationship to itself when it is the main verb. And subjects treatments have left out exceptions, exception natures course as styles, as exception nature, tactical ulterior from what these five distinct identities of sequence nature / simultaneous nature that are increasingly valued. I forgot what I was thinking. I'm going to use them like black. Before we all gone, this is where evolution's fruits, gifts means from nowhere. See, the ground's course. The ground has an identity of relationship to itself. It's like better than a gaming system. Evolution science should only feel like games. The law can't be read by, oh, this person's a criminal, this person's not. If you guys see what's actually recorded, if you allow the simultaneously spoken, you will observe all kinds of fake behavior and how they get away with it. Tied to and as conscious by a breaching method and then further through our own use remotely. Uses of differential but increasing criminally foreign influence, fact-checking nature qualities, aspects, and sequence shifts, other illusions, natures of identity, theft, fraud, slanders, roles. That's one of the things involved with it too. The second one little thing like that is brought up, our revelations. So we're going to use what's hyper evidential. So it is overtly communicated, but it is also counter obfuscated because people will deny such. With the groupings tied to databases located. For example, with a little rap guy and friends episode /S, there'll be more with huge tenement buildings in New York City, and with the little rap guy and friends cartoons. The whole world is extorted. But now for the fear, they are counter extorted. And so little rep guy and friends, Sepp and Reeves, For example, they are charged with needing to cultivate the counter extortion of Hartford and of New York City. And you guys, and you know that and how slavery had been entrenched north and south, sickly distinctly. And that was the first thing we're supposed to understand as American history. Right up here. And they're sickly, and because this is the method, the breaching method stays valuable for war treatments. They left out the significance of this. Then they're going to say where they just, you know, they confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. The mayor's kids, too, involved with the sequence shifts, attaching little kids in their own selves, fake words with each other, fake sequence relationships to each other, fake natures of ties to themselves or others, wire crime acts, roles, methods, even juxtaposition. So there are people with DeSimone, even family, also brought up like I didn't want to try to do it without names. There's a guy named Britt too with Hartford Hospital. Involved a whole bunch of people with a Brendan Leahy and his father. Involved with courts, prosecutors, and judges, and with defendant various natures of federal criminals before they got caught, and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defendant capacities, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, the RICO, and these are also people recorded involved with federal crimes with kids in elderly homes and connected uses of them as people on and off campuses, also coordinated, and uses of that also recorded, used by a breaching method so relevant. Also the narratives with the motivations, because the motivations with the tied to the breaching method are increasingly being screened. Not one has gleaned vaccines, I think. I don't know if everybody's here, but dang it. End stream. Thank you, everybody. Good night, Midnight Black.